Welcome back to the channel. My name is Ryan, and today we are discussing by far the game of the week. In my opinion, by far the game of the year, and probably will end up being the game of the year because what happens here will have so much future implications. It will change the way college football will be looked at for the rest of the year. We got number 2 Georgia going west, not by much, but still going west. They play number 4th ranked Alabama, and in this matchup, it's very obvious the significance of this matchup. This team that we call the Georgia Bulldogs are on a tear. They have been the past couple years, but the one team that has slowed them down continuously is the Alabama Crimson Tide, which is usually led by a coach named Nick Saban. Nick Saban is one of the greatest coaches, I would say the greatest coach in the history of college football. Depending on what you look at, could be the greatest coach in history of football. He has a 5-1 record against this Georgia team under Kirby Smart's reign. Interesting enough, the only time they lost was in a national championship. Only, I believe, 3 years ago. I know, I was a freshman in high school whenever they beat Alabama. It was a big deal in the South. I'm from Tennessee, the South side, the south part of Tennessee. So I'm about 30 minutes away from Georgia, and you're not that far away from Alabama. So I get to see a lot of these different type of fans and how it just makes an impact in people's lives. And that was one of the biggest moments I've ever seen in sports. Georgia finally beating Alabama was huge. They finally go over that hump. The following year, they don't have to play Alabama. They go undefeated, and they kill TCU in the national championship. Then the following year, they continue to be undefeated, and then they play Alabama, which is the team they played last year in the SEC championship. Last SEC championship that Nick Saban coached in, the last SEC game that Nick Saban coached in, and they won the game 27-24. Jalen Milroe and Carson Beck are still the two quarterbacks. That usually doesn't happen this era of college football, that you have back-to-back years of significant games being played by the same quarterbacks. Carson Beck, known as a more accurate quarterback, and playing for Georgia, he has some mobility, but he's definitely known for his ability to throw the ball at a high level. Last year, he was over 70% completion percentage, and this year he started off pretty well. Had a struggle against Kentucky that we will definitely talk about. He had no touchdowns in that game, almost threw an interception, and they barely scored 13 points. And if Kentucky had somewhat of an offense, and Mark Stoops had some cojones to go for it, maybe this game turns out differently. We might be talking about Georgia not being a top 10 team in the country. And this game is a do or die situation for them. But, like they usually do, like how that happened against South Carolina, like happened against Missouri 2 years ago, they barely scrape by and win a game. And usually after those games, they have time to get their stuff together and then bounce back. Well, they have a week to get their stuff. They have 2 weeks to get their stuff together because now they're playing number 4th ranked team in the country out of Alabama, Jalen Milroe. He is known as the more mobile quarterback of the two. He is probably the most mobile quarterback in the entire SEC, arguably in the country. He's a big physical threat, of course. He's known for going deep the entire time, but he's also gained a lot of very good quarterback maintenance, I should say. He has improved a lot compared to last year. Last year, he was just, he was kind of like a Jackson Arnold of when he was going to give the ball to the other team at one point or another. What's going to happen when he does so? But throughout the year, he progressed and he became the quarterback what he was, which he showed against Georgia last year in the SEC championship, and he's only gotten better because Kalen DeBoer is his offensive guru, I would say. He helped Michael Penix become a good quarterback that was not healthy to an elite quarterback to a Heisman contending quarterback, which I still believe could have won the Heisman. Maybe I would say should have won the Heisman, but neither here or there. Kalen DeBoer is looked at as one of the best coaches in the country. He has over 100 wins and I think only 12 losses in his college career as a coach. He is phenomenal. He was a coach of Washington Huskies last year who made the national championship but only lost to Missouri because, in my opinion, there were a lot of injuries on Washington's side. Some refs play in my opinion, but Michigan still won overall. They dominated in that game. But now you send Kalen DeBoer down to Alabama, and he has his unit playing for Alabama very, very well. And what their main thing they do offensively is run the ball. They got Jam Miller back there, Justice Haynes, Jalen Milroe. You got the main guys. Jam Miller is their main back. When they need a play going to the outside, they let him get it. He has enough explosiveness on the outside to get out there, but he's also big enough to break off tackles. He is an Alabama prototype running back that you would love to see. He's not a Derrick Henry. He's more like a Mark Ingram, I guess, if there was any comparison he had to give. But that's still a high-level running back. Jalen Milroe's ability as a running quarterback will be big in this game because Georgia is very good at pursuing the guys up front. And also, their defensive line for Georgia, three guys against Kentucky, played over 50 snaps that game. The next on the defensive line, the next closest was only 13 times. 13 snaps. The fourth most snaps the defensive lineman played for Georgia was 13. Everyone, the top three, played 50 plus snaps. That is a lot. If you can run the ball the way Alabama can and should be able to, and Jalen Milroe will get out and run, it's going to be a long day, and you're going to have to rely on that bench unit for Georgia. On the other hand, their safeties, led by Malachi Starks, and that secondary is very good. And these guys have not had to face an elite secondary yet. They play Wisconsin. That's no elite secondary. USF, that's no elite secondary. Their quarterback, their head coach, Alex Golesh, a former Tennessee offensive coordinator. That guy does not know defenses. He knows offenses, and that's why they're able to run the ball very well. They ran the ball over 100 yards. Just the quarterback ran over 100 yards against Alabama. Almost beat Alabama until the last 8 minutes. I believe they should have been more aggressive that game, but it didn't happen. They also played Western Kentucky. There's no real passing threat in that. There's no pass threat, and there's no pass coverage. They're not having a test yet until they have to play Georgia, and we shall see what happens. But they have very good secondary, and that will show up. The main guy, in my opinion, for Alabama right now, and has shown up this year, is Ryan Williams. He's the same age as me. I'm still in high school. So this guy is really good and very talented for his age. And you already know he's 17. That's already known. But the guy goes deep every single time in a game and gets a big play touchdown. He did against Wisconsin. He did against USF. Did against Western Kentucky. He might get one. But I doubt it. I bet Kirby's going to be prepared. If anyone's going to be prepared, it will be Kirby Smart to protect the deep ball. Malachi Starks is a top 5 player in the country. He will be ready for Ryan Williams. And anyone else, Kendrick Law, anyone else they want to send deep, he'll be ready for. So Jalen Milroe is going to be very accurate in this game. He definitely can be, but he's not had to be this year to a full extent because also this defense of Alabama has not been tested that much this year. Running the defense, yes, and I would say they failed the test against USF. They ran the ball continuously through him. And I'm not saying Carson Beck can run, but when your quarterback can run for 100 yards or more against them, I bet Etienne can get it going. I bet he can. But the problem is with Georgia, Tate Ratledge, the offensive guard, is out for, I think, now 5 weeks with an injury, with, I think, a knee injury. He sustained it against Kentucky, and even then, Kentucky was moving them. But if there was a part of Kentucky's defense that's good, out of all of them, it's their D-line. They have a big physical defensive line, and I believe that Kentucky's defensive line is very much underrated. They pushed them around a lot more than you probably would expect. Slowed down the run a bit, but later on in the game, it started getting going, and Etienne had 2 or 3 kind of 10-plus yard runs. I was like, okay, this is what we'd like to see. Yeah, 2 weeks to get us prepared. And Alabama's defensive line, again, not been hugely tested, but again, the run game was not stopped well against USF. I bet they'll be better, but we don't know. We have no idea. We have to see. Etienne's one of the best running backs in the country. He had a slow start against Kentucky, but that's going to get prepared for these type of games. He came up from Florida for these type of games. Just stay off the road, especially during this hurricane times. We want no Georgia players are driving at this point. So the offense is going to have to be big. I believe Dylan Bell is going to have to be huge for Georgia. Last year, he had some big plays. I remember against Tennessee last year, he had like 3 different types of touchdowns, rushing, receiving, and passing, all in one game. This guy's a big playmaker. Arian Smith, got to go deep. He had a big play in the SEC Championship. You got to get him deep at times. Got to quiet down this crowd for Alabama. This crowd for Alabama is going to be wild. It's not oftentimes they've been an underdog at home. I think maybe the last time they were underdog at home, could be wrong, I think they said it was 2015. They didn't specify the game, but if I had to guess, it was probably when they had to play second-ranked LSU. And if anything goes like what happened in that game, first of all, if they have that type of defense, they're winning the national championship. Secondly, they're not going to be able to run the ball. But I highly doubt that's the same type of defense that they had in 2015. So, anyways, that was the Leonard Fournette LSU team. I'll let you know. We don't remember. But back to Georgia. They got to go deep. They got to have some big plays. let Beck make some accurate throws. 15, I'm not saying you have to go 50 yards down the field, but 15, 20 yards, 2 times, 3 times in a quarter would be huge. Over time, that would sustain and you get some points because I bet your defense can be able to hold up. Long drives, 5, 6, maybe 7-minute drives could be huge. 4 minutes at minimum for points would be huge for this defense because this defensive line's got to be ready. Mykel Williams is not fully healthy. He's going to have to play, but he's not fully healthy. So we got to see how that's going to play out. The defenses for Alabama, the defense for Alabama can definitely get after the quarterback throwing wise. But again, he's not having to play an elite offensive line. This offensive line is big and will be ready for these type of moments. Again, without their starting offensive guard, who's a first-round pick, that's going to be huge. Let's see if Bama can take advantage of that. I bet they'll have opportunities to take advantage, but it's going to really come down to Carson Beck. And Carson Beck's proven again and again and again that so far he can make the big throws when he has to. This crowd for Alabama will be a big difference. It's over 100,000 fans, and it's the first time out they're a home underdog. They have this feeling they've not had for a while. Usually under Nick Saban, you could feel very confident walking into that stadium that they're going to walk out with a W. This year, you don't have that guaranteed factor of Nick Saban on the sideline calling the game and making the adjustments at halftime, making all the calls when he has to, get in people's faces when they need to. You don't have that this year. Right now, you have Kalen DeBoer. He's very, very good, but he's a different type of coach. They've not had to have this type of game yet. But last year, you did have to play Dan Lanning. Dan Lanning is the defensive coordinator under Kirby Smart with those really good Georgia defenses. Kalen DeBoer beat that man twice last year, both times as underdogs. That's pretty big. I believe this game, this crowd's going to be electric. They're going to have this, not desperation feel, but this urgency they've not had in a while. It's like, we need to be loud for us to win this game. Under Saban, again, you had the feeling we're going to win no matter what. No, you're going to have to be loud to win this game. Make a difference. But, for my prediction, you look at Georgia and you look at Alabama. These two teams are arguably the two top teams in the SEC. Texas looks really, really good. But I want to see them play a little bit more just to see what's going to happen. Again, I don't know. It depends on how healthy Quinn Ewers is going to be, in my opinion. Because if Quinn Ewers stays healthy for the rest of the year, he'll probably be the number one team in the SEC. But if he doesn't, Arch Manning does look really, really good. But Arch Manning hasn't had to play Georgia. They haven't had to play in the Red River rivalry. He hasn't had to go to A&M. He hasn't had to do all that stuff. I'm not saying that Quinn Ewers has had to play Georgia or play at A&M. But I would say Quinn Ewers has had to play at Alabama. He's had to play in the Red River rivalry. He's had to play against Washington. He's played in the Big 12 championship. But he's played in a lot of places that are big-time games. And you got to step up then. Arch Manning has played against borderline D1 teams so far. And the best team's going to play yet is at home versus Mississippi State that I could score 5 touchdowns against on them. The best thing they got is their cowbells was clearly in a defense. They leave their defense down in Mississippi every single time they go anywhere. And it's not like even they have one. They just leave it. It's just there. It's just there. It's awful. It's terrible. And also, it's a former offensive coordinator from Oklahoma, too, Jeff Lebby. So, it's kind of funny. They're not going to have a good defense for a long, long time. It's very bad down in Mississippi for them, at least. Ole Miss is doing great right now. But back on topic. Georgia, Alabama. You compare the two, very, very evenly matched. It's just what quarterback, in my opinion, will make the bigger plays when they need to the most. Jalen Milroe last year made the bigger plays. I believe it was more about not making the big mistake. And last year, Georgia tried to play cute, try to make a cool play, end around inside their own 10, and they messed it up completely. Gave the ball right to Alabama, and they got a touchdown. You know what the point differential was? 3 points. 3 points. That's a big difference. Big difference. That could have been 24-20. If you look back at it, it could have been very different. But it was 27-24 in Alabama's favor. So, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen this year. But, my prediction for this game, my score prediction, I know Alabama's really, really good at home. Very, very good. Last year was an anomaly losing to them. Last year, the Texas at home. Before then, it was LSU. Before then, it was wow. So, I've been back and forth on this. The betting line is in Georgia's favor. It's by 2.5. That's kind of surprising to me. I thought it put it in Bama's favor. But in my high school career, I'm a senior in high school right now. I have never watched Georgia lose a regular season game in my entire high school career. I'm a senior. And we've learned what the term of a fool means. A term of a fool is a person that has seen the ways of what to do and refuses to do it. He has seen the evidence and refuses to accept it. If I'm watching Georgia win 44 regular season games in a row, I have never got a day to my high school that I can say, Georgia lost a regular season game. That's 36 wins guaranteed. That's ridiculous. And they had some ones in the COVID year too, after they lost to Florida. They won out that year. That's a lot. That's over 40. I'd be a fool to not pick Georgia to win a regular season game. Until proven different, I'm going to go with Georgia. I'm going with the Bulldogs. I got 24-21. Kind of like what last year was about that big mistake inside their own 10. I believe it's going to be like that. It'll be kind of just back and forth. I think Beck will make the big throws. Georgia's really good at bouncing back from these type of games. And I believe it'll be a big environment. I think Milroe will make one mistake. It'll be opposite of last year. Last year, not a lot of mistakes were made. This year, I believe there will be a big mistake made. And it might be by Milroe. It'll probably be by Milroe. I got Georgia winning this 24-21. Bulldogs. Put it on the comments your opinions about this. Again, this could go either way. But I've only watched Georgia win these games in the regular season. So, I'm picking them. Yeah. Put on the comments your opinions about this. Hope you have a great day, y'all. Stay safe. And remember, God bless y'all. And stay safe from this hurricane, man.